Hello, people. How are you guys? Welcome to another podcast of Scaling Up Your Business to Hundreds here, guys. We are back with another episode, and today we have a very special guest with us. Everyone can welcome Mr. Ayush Param. He's a very interesting person, and he's a very genius person in Google. When it comes to Google marketing, he's a very good person. He's a very genius person, and we're gonna have a very interesting conversation around Google Ads, how Google works, how Google Ads works. But first, let us welcome Mr. Ayush. Yeah, hi Ayush, how are you?
Hi Harshit, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So Ayush, can we get to know a bit about yourself? I'm not taking an interview of yours. It might it might be
Yeah.
hearing like an interview, but yes.
No,
Can you
of
please
course.
tell us about yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Ayush Param. I'm a team lead at Yogi in the operations side. In the operations side, I graduated from Christ University. This in 2018. I studied economics, mathematics, and statistics. I triple majored. I interned at another organization in Bangalore for 2 months. I was referred to Adiyogi by someone who used to work here. And I got an offer and I came to Adiyogi. This was in February 2019. Ever since then, it's been a major journey. I can safely say that this is one of the best decisions I've ever made, moving to Delhi, moving to Gurgaon, making this transition. The journey at Adiyogi has been very interesting in terms of the learning of how marketing works, how performance marketing works, the different levels of learning that can happen, different ad types, campaign types, how businesses work, e-commerce and otherwise, and their implementation. I've been on the Google operations since the beginning. When I joined, Google was in its infancy. It was effectively testing the waters to see how Google would be as a marketing platform. And I worked on Google. This was also at the time that one of our campaign types, smart shopping, was taking off. This was when Google really started taking off as a marketing platform. And we got on this very quickly. Adobe adopted smart shopping very fast. And over the next 3 years, Adobe has grown, the Google team's grown, the Google operations have grown. We're a fairly strong and robust team when it comes to both growing and developing Google operations at scale for a variety of enterprises, for a variety of clients across industries and across campaign types as well.
And literally, I know that you have scaled the business to like 50x, 60x. But can you please tell the people that how much you have scaled the business of different kind of industries, what kind of brands you have handled, how much you have scaled them in terms of revenue, in terms of scaling. If you can let us a little bit about that.
All right. So there was one brand that engages in, let's call them personal care products. We got this client when they were spending very low on Google at about 5,000 rupees a day, 10,000 rupees a day, thereabouts. We struggled to scale them for a long time. And then we managed to leverage YouTube and discovery. And as a consequence of this, we managed to scale them to 60, 70, 80,000 rupees a day on Google. Yeah. So there's that. This is personal care. We've scaled a variety of apparel brands. I currently handle operations for an electronics brand, for a fitness brand, and so on. The IDOB's focus has been, for the most part, on apparel, home decor, and FMCG. And we also have healthcare operations as well. Yes.
Okay. So before starting of the podcast, first of all, I want to know like what is the most thing you have encountered in your journey while working with different kinds of brands and working as a performance marketer, I would say.
The most what? I didn't
The
get that.
most funniest part.
Okay. The funniest part of engaging in performance marketing. Well, one thing that's very funny, very amusing, I would say, now not funny exactly, is how counterintuitive the entire process is. Meaning, we can make one small change and it can have the exact opposite effect that we are looking for. Because on Google, the algorithm works in a very interesting way. For example, the slightest change can cause the entire campaign to go into learning again. And sometimes the algorithm can just throw everything out of whack. It's a very, very uh, I'm trying to think of a better word than volatile to describe it, but it can be volatile, and which is a good thing if you can stick with the volatility because the traffic over time can be beautiful as well. For example, there are some cases in which you increase the budgets on a campaign to get it to spend, and then they can stop spending. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. You generally wouldn't imagine that we increase the budget and stop spending, but on Google, the algorithm will send the entire campaign into learning in a sense. And in those cases, sometimes it can be tricky to get the campaigns to spend again. It can be funny when that happens. Yeah.
I would rather say it will be get funny for you, but not for the brand.
Absolutely. Yeah. In the short. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Let's start with the topic. Topic for today. Like, what are the top Google marketing strategies to tackle e-commerce challenges in 2022? I think we are ready with the presentation and we can show it to our people.
Absolutely. Just a moment.
Yeah. And meanwhile, can you tell us? I think there's some network issue with Ayush screen. Yes, Ayush is with us. कोई नहीं ऐसा होता रहता है यार. So Ayush, I was asking if you can brief us about what Google marketing is exactly, or what are some best Google marketing strategies. Actually, we are going to like talk about that in a very comprehensive manner. Just to talk a brief about that, and we can share that. We can like
All right.
slide.
Now, we'll get to this. Before we move on to the presentations, let me set up something.
We can slide.
Yes. Now, what you've asked is what are some Google marketing strategies that can be implemented? All right. Now, one huge marketing strategy that we like to implement is to target audiences of people who are looking for a product specifically. Yeah. Now, in this, we can target people who are searching specific things online. For example, if you're a footwear brand, you can literally target people who are searching buy shoes online. And you can do this on the YouTube home feed. You can do this through Gmail. You can do this through websites on the Google Display Network. And you can do this through search and the shopping tabs as well. And by that, I mean, I'm sure everyone who's on this call has many times had the experience of being on a website and seeing a lot of ads on the sites. And I mean ads showing specific products or highlighting specific brands that you can buy from. This is one thing that we can leverage fairly well in terms of marketing.
Perfect.
Now, we have multiple strategies. We've got
we'll talk about that.
Yes.
But I want to know, like, what is the relevance or what will be the importance of the today's topic? Like, do we really need Google strategies? Actually, people do think we can run Google ads very simple. Google has given us a very easy UI. Google has given a very good looking dashboard which we can use, and
very much. Yes. All right. Now, one thing to understand is that the setup on Google is relatively simple, but the various optimization levers that can be pulled and that should be pulled can be quite tricky to work around. In fact, the platform is very, very convoluted in a number of ways. There's a number of things that can go wrong. There's a number of things that can go very right. There's different ways of reporting performance, and there's a lot of things that need to be worked on in this way. Now, the need for this discussion comes down to three things for the most part. Yeah, the changing landscape of e-commerce, the phenomenon of RTOs, which is a big deal.
yeah,
And
RTOs,
the
I think is a very, very, very big challenge for the companies.
Yes, and the reduced maintenance of brand loyalty. And we can go into this. Now, when we're talking about the changing landscape of e-commerce, now this was an issue before, long before COVID, actually. This isn't a COVID thing. The COVID has accelerated the phenomenon that I'm about to talk about, but it didn't create it and it didn't move it along. The phenomenon of India is a developing, I'll speak in the context of India here, of course, because most of our guests, most of the brands that work with us want to expand first and foremost in India.
In India.
Now, India is a developing country, and most of the people in India don't have a great deal of internet access. They don't spend a lot of time online. But most of India is yet to be urbanized, although there is a proliferation of technology. Now, one thing that is the case, as of 2019, 500 million people were projected to go online in terms of getting internet access for the first time in 5 years. This is a colossal explosion in terms of a market. which means there's no shortage of people who will be looking online to buy, no shortage of people who will be looking online for comparing different brands.
Although we have a bucket of around 1.3 billion people who can buy only from India.
Yes,
And
yes,
if we talk about the like active users on the internet, I think it will be around 20 or 30 crore.
yes, yes. Now, one thing that has also happened in realization of this is a large number of people, a large number of brands who are looking to expand online, who are looking to take their product to the customers without necessarily setting up physical stores in every single place where their customer might want to purchase. Now, the tricky part about this is that how do you define yourself as distinct from other brands? And we can get to that as well in terms of what we do there. But this changing landscape is something to be kept in mind. The second thing is the phenomenon of RTOs, return to origin. Now, this is an issue where one issue that is faced a lot is when someone makes a purchase and they don't like the product, or the product doesn't apply, or whatever reason there might be, and then they send it back. That's a loss, not just in terms of the manufacturing cost and the transportation cost, but it's also a loss in terms of the marketing costs that went into it. Yeah, if someone spent 100 rupees to market a product and got a sale that was worth 300 rupees, but then that was returned, that sale has effectively been negated because very often there's a refund. So this phenomenon is one thing that we can also be resolved through Google, and can get to why in a moment.
Yeah. Why do we need these Google strategies?
Exactly, yes. And the third is the reduced maintenance of brand loyalty.
Yeah.
Now, in a context where someone had 5, 7, 10 brands that they were targeted, that they could purchase from, usually in the context of small towns or cities within walking distance where there were stores, then it was easy to look for a particular brand and make a purchase. This was usually if the brand was familiar to them, or if they've been purchasing for a long time, if their parents purchased from it, if their friends recommended it, and if some celebrity endorsed it, etc. However, with the proliferation of so many brands, so many celebrities are endorsing, so many people are buying with so many options, the variety means that people are less likely to stick with one brand for a long time organically. And we need to have this discussion to determine the people who've purchased or who are likely to purchase, and keep them purchasing and keep people like them purchasing. That's the need for this discussion.
Yeah, I think coming on to the brand loyalty part, we do have like n number of brands in the market, and even if a person like buys X thing from one company, and if he sees different kind of a similar kind of product from another company with a cheaper price, generally what our customer tendency is, he will shift to the other brand. But maintaining brand loyalty with a higher prices, with a higher AOV is like a
Yes.
very big task for any kind of marketer, and that's what your roles comes in, I think.
Yes.
Uh,
So,
I think we do have a very interesting question right now. How does maintaining brand loyalty, that's what we were talking in this. How
hmm,
how does maintaining brand loyalty become more difficult when we have like very enhanced competition right now?
all right. Now, the competition point is merely a question of the existence of other brands. However, there's another element, which is that you may be a brand that's marketing online, but the other 30 brands with which you're competing, they're not lying dormant. So the increased supply is merely a fact. But the fact that there's active competition is a different beast altogether. There's active competition in terms of spends for ad space, for ranking in Google's performance, in the various search engines, in places and placements on the display network, and there's competition for attention as well. There's, in fact, a very small number of people who have the financial ability to make purchases. And even with the 500 million expansion, the AOVs with which most people can purchase is quite low.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is a smaller target market and more vicious competition that is only going up and up and up. This is one problem, which is active competition. Yep. The second issue is price comparisons, which is when people will purchase from all things being equal, people will buy whatever costs less. but all things are never equal. And it is the responsibility of the brand to highlight what is our USP, what defines you differently.
And Ayush, I've generally seen like a brand who is just starting up their e-commerce strategies or who are just starting up their e-commerce store. They generally tends to speak like we don't need any kind of Google strategies. We don't need to run ads on Google because Google generally like rank your businesses on the what you would say on like on a natural patterns, but they actually don't know what Google strategies or Google marketing can do. Like if they are getting that rank in 1 year, Google marketing can attain that in like 1 month. What you were
Mhm.
saying, like Google Ads pays it and attention, all of that.
Right. All right. So one thing that to be understood is that there's an increased variety element to this. Yeah. So I just want to reiterate on the specifics of the issue, which is not only are there price comparisons, not only is it natural, there's a huge element of levers that can be pulled to increase your ranking in Google relative to other brands. Even brands like Amazon and Flipkart, you can actually scale moment to moment greater than Amazon and Flipkart on the same product type.
Hmm.
And it isn't just a question of marketplaces. There's also larger, more established brands with which you can reasonably compete if you get your targeting right.
Okay.
Yes.
That's like very great, Ayush. And I think you've talking about increased variety of the leads. Like we have different kinds of people, we have different kinds of people in the market. How to tap different kinds of people from different stratas, from different societies, and rather their needs are very different. Someone wants like very branded product, very specific, very genuine product, and someone wants a low AOV products.
Right. All right.
So how like a brand approach those kinds of people, those kinds of market?
All right. Well, one thing we can do is to set up filters inside the campaigns and the ads themselves to
Hmm.
target people who to only show high AOV products or low AOV products to certain segments of people. We have demographic targeting that we can engage in for this purpose. We can also target people in specific audiences who are more likely to make certain purchases. Meaning, if you have an audience of people who are researching investment services, they are more likely to make high AOV purchases than someone who is researching, say, uh, hair care products. Yeah, because generally speaking, people who are looking to invest, the barrier to entry for investment sustainably in terms of money is significantly higher than the barrier to entry in terms of purchasing hair care products. And the barrier to entry for investment services, which is to pay effectively to pay someone to invest money for you, is much higher. So targeting these different audiences is something we can do.
And let's move to the next part of our section, and which would say like when you're going for Google performance marketing, what are
Mhm.
some of their advantages and disadvantages of the marketing platform?
All right. Which do you want to hear about first, the disadvantages or the advantages?
We'd go with the positive one.
Okay. Yeah, so we can start with the advantages. The first and foremost, most powerful advantage is prior intent. Now,
And
here's
what
one
do you
thing.
mean by the term intent?
Okay, when I say intent, what I mean is a clarity in someone's mind about what they want to do and
Okay.
acting on that decision and that clarity.
Okay.
And by that I mean this. On Google, especially on Google search and on Google shopping,
Hmm.
people are making a decision to search for something. When someone searches buy shoes online, they're making a decision to buy shoes online. It's a very targeted thing. On Facebook, it's not really search oriented. It's oriented towards demographics, it's oriented towards interests, it's oriented towards interest groups. But Google does all that as well. But there's a degree of a lack of intent on Facebook that doesn't exist on Google. Now, let this I mentioned prior intent, not just intent.
Yeah.
Generated intent and prior intent are two different things. Someone who's going through Facebook because they're catching up on status updates with regard to their friends or their families or their colleagues, and then they see an ad. that ad is effectively generating the intent. It's not generating the interest, meaning if someone really doesn't want to buy shoes, they're not going to care about an ad. But if someone is on the fence or interested in buying shoes, then buying shoes from a specific brand or from a specific ad, that intent is being generated by the ad. On Google, the intent is being generated beforehand.
Yeah.
Meaning people are searching in a proactive fashion. The ad comes
So
after.
intent is a advantage for a Google.
Very much, very much.
Okay.
And here are some advantages of intent. One, higher conversion rates. People who intend to buy something, who are walking into a situation with open eyes, are more likely to make a decision that has a greater degree of clarity. There's less vacillation on that point. There's less indecision.
Okay.
And then there's higher AOVs also, because people who are making a clear decision are less likely to be particularly risk averse, and they're more likely to make the big ticket purchases because they've thought through it carefully. Now, this is another thing that needs to be understood. And I want to tie this into the RTO point that was mentioned before. There is a concept called buyer's remorse, where people, and it literally applies here, where people engage in a decision and then they regret that decision because they think they could have done better, or that they shouldn't have done it, or they second guess themselves. This is most common in decisions that are impulsive or decisions that aren't carefully thought out. This is where prior intent comes in again. The odds of buyer's remorse when you purchase off of Facebook, if you see it there for the first time, are much higher than the odds of buyer's remorse if you see it on Google for the first time. And again, I say first time in terms of prospecting. If you see an ad on Facebook as a retargeting ad, none of what I just said applies. But if you're seeing it as a prospecting
so Facebook runs like totally different and Google runs totally different in based of intent.
Yes, in terms of intent, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Makes sense. And
Now,
yes, go.
you were saying, yeah.
No, I wasn't saying.
All right. And let me get to the disadvantages. I'll move through this a little quickly.
Okay.
The disadvantages, the first and foremost disadvantage is the volatility. If you're a business that, this won't be an issue if you're a business that is willing to wait for a certain period of time. For small returns, and by that I mean, if you're just trying to get revenues, then a period of 14 to 20 days is something you need to wait out and look at the averages on this period. Meaning, you don't want to look at the ROAS on a daily basis. You want to look at the ROAS on an averaged period of time, over a 14 to 20 day period. However, if you want to focus on scaling, then the returns are going to be very, very irregular. Some days you're going to get, you may get, if your expected is 3x, if your break even is 3x, some days you can get 7x. And no, I'm not talking about fake orders. 7 days you can get 7x. Other days you can get 0x, with nothing being wrong with the platform. This is a disadvantage in that it is something that inhibits people from starting Google in the first place. They may have previous experiences with Google that weren't very good. The second disadvantage is the attribution length, meaning a lot of times people will click on an ad and then take a day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 10 days to make a decision to purchase. Yeah. And yes. And in this period of time, it is very easy to interpret this as wasted money until the sale actually happens, which with some of our brands, it can take up to 20 days after a click.
But that's what like Google has started a longer period of attribution.
Yes. That's exactly right. So this is another thing that needs to be thought about. The third, again, the complexity of operations and moving parts. This is actually my favorite disadvantage. Yeah. Because,
So
let me explain.
you have a favorite disadvantage also.
I do, because this is the disadvantage that we can control. Adobe controls the complexity of operations by making sure that the process of ad creation and the process of collecting data and understanding it is simplified. With the volatility and attribution linked due to dynamic remarketing, we can't control for that. We can explain it and we can try to mitigate it, largely through improving our remarketing efforts. But we can't control that as much as we can control the complexity. So these are the advantages and disadvantages.
And coming on to the higher AOV products, what point you have mentioned. So don't you think if we go for a higher AOV products, we are neglecting the people who are going for like a product which is ranged below 1,000? If we are targeting only the products which is like more than 1,000 rupees, and we are neglecting the people who are going below the range of 1,000, and
Well,
that would be like a very proportionate and very substantial number of people which we are neglecting.
absolutely. Yes. Now, one thing that I want to say about that is the 1,000 rupee mark that you mentioned, that was relatively arbitrary, but this is what we want to think about.
Yeah.
If someone engages in the standard cost per click on Google across campaign types combined is about 2 rupees. Yeah. So if there's a cost per click of 2 rupees and a conversion rate of 0.5%, yeah, and which means click to conversion for about 200 clicks to one conversion. We're talking about a cost per conversion of 400 rupees. If you have products that are below 400 rupees, you're going to have a problem in that you're losing money. If you have products above 400 rupees, then you will have an advantage to a point in that you're getting more ROAS than what you've set up. I mean, you're getting a higher ROAS in terms of 1x. But for most businesses, their break even isn't 1x, their break even is 3x or 4x. And at this point, an exclusion of products below 1,000 is important in terms of making sure that the operations are sustainable. Now, if you're bringing in huge numbers of revenues off of your higher ticket items, you can absolutely move towards selling your lower ticket items. And there's definitely cases in which the lower ticket items perform better. These are usually cases in which we very, very carefully control for the cost per click. If the product is very good and the website is set up very well, and we can do website audits to determine that, or if the product is in a niche where there's high demand and low supply, then those can be targeted. But as a general rule, if the AOV is if the product price, the median product price in the catalog, say, is under 1,000 rupees, it's best to either exclude them or to sideline them up to a point, or to set up campaigns for them, to set up ads for them, where they spend very little, but they get higher returns.
Okay. So I think we can move to the next question. Also, we do have a limited time of window for our session. Otherwise, the session can go for a long. And yes, we can move to the next slide. And what are the main challenges, I would say, you are facing on a day-by-day basis when you are handling different types of e-commerce brands? And I would say different type of e-commerce brands from different kind of industries where the AOV is different. Everything is like totally poles apart.
Understood. What you're asking for is commonalities regardless of industry and the size of the business.
Yes.
All right. So now what I'm about to say is going to skew towards problems with smaller businesses that are looking to expand. Obviously, I wouldn't be talking about problems with Zara, say. Yeah. Just as an example. There's
Perfectly makes sense, because if I would like I don't have that much of money that I would buy a 50,000 rupees of bag.
right. Yeah. So, I mean, for a much larger business, the issue really is how to prevent competitors from taking your market share. But most e-commerce businesses are looking to expand operations on their own, not necessarily to throw competitors off balance. So, there's three main challenges that we face in e-commerce today. The first one is highlighting the USPs and distinguishing themselves from competitors. If you're a brand that is selling women's ethnic fashion, traditional wear, lehengas, suit sets, that sort of thing, and you're competing against 30 other brands, which is actually an understatement because this market is fairly saturated. How do you distinguish your brand from other brands? And you cannot, beyond a certain point, compete on price. This may get you sales in the short term. We know that reducing prices and setting up discounts and sales works in generating conversions. But over the long term, this can be a problem, not just in terms of AOVs, but in terms of conversion rates, as the brand gains the reputation of being a discounted brand. And premium brands tend to perform better in terms of reputation than discounted ones.
Like we have seen some examples in car. If you can remember, I will not say the name, but if you can remember, people have like made that car very cheap, and that car was like very popular, but people have like left that car. I know that you got my point.
I did, yes. All right, that's one example. Yes, absolutely, and it's a very, very pertinent one also. Yeah. So this is a huge problem that is being faced. The highlighting of the USP and distinguishing from competitors who are also focusing on the highlighting of USPs in a similar way. The second problem that's being faced is marketing to intent-based audiences. Now, I've already talked about how Google is a prior intent-oriented platform. And that was a reference in terms of comparison to Facebook. In Google itself, there's different kinds of intent. There's people who have an interest in a particular kind of in any subject. Then there's people who are actively researching for that subject. And by actively researching, I mean reading websites, watching videos on the subject. Then there's people who are actively searching for specific purchase intent terms. Then there's people who are actually going to the websites and making the purchases. These are all varying gradients of intent. They all exist on a continuum, but marketing to each and every one of these intent-based audiences at different periods. As many of us can tell from what I've just said, this basically follows the funnel element, the top funnel, medium, mid funnel, bottom. This is a second issue. How do you market to intent-based audiences? How do you know which audience is good at any given time? And how do we make sure that the sales are happening? And okay,
I also think like every person has different kind of intent at different kind of point of time.
yes,
Like at this point of time, I might be able to buy something. At 5 years down the line, my intent will be changed, my purchasing power will be changed.
absolutely.
And what if
Yes,
you're targeting that same intent to the same audiences? That might not work. You have to
Abs-
change your intent by different continuums and by different time periods.
absolutely. People who are looking for investment services, for example, again, I use investment services because it's a good example. People who are looking for investment services right now would be a very, very good audience to sell high AOV items to. However, say 5% of India is actively, no, let's say 1% of India is actively looking to invest right now. As more and more, as the internet becomes more proliferated, people become more interested in investing. You're either going to get more people, more services, more organizations that are into investing, or you're going to get people that are more oriented towards just a moment. You're either going to get more brands that are oriented towards investing, in that they're selling services more, or the existing brands are going to reduce the cost to get into investment services. My point is that people are going to, let's say that the average salary of someone who is interested in investment services is 70,000 a month. As people learn more and more about investing, and when they learn earlier, as people in rural areas learn more about investing, then the median salary is going to come down of people who are actually researching investment services. It could come to 60, 50, 40.
I would say that would be an like whole different kind of topic.
Yes.
We can like discuss it a different kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
The point I was making
Yeah.
is that I was building off of what you said, which is that purchase intent is a hugely complex thing, and optimizing for this moment to moment is a huge issue that is being faced. The third challenge that is being faced in e-commerce is retargeting to audiences in a multifaceted and in a sustained fashion. And by multifaceted, I mean in different channels. Marketing to them on search, marketing to them on the search network, marketing to them on the shopping network, marketing to them on ads, on different websites on the Google Display Network, marketing to them on YouTube, marketing to them through Gmail, marketing to them through assorted Google properties. This is another thing. And when I say retargeting in a sustained fashion, what I mean is retargeting in terms of efficiency and quality. Yes, you can throw a huge amount of money at any given moment and bring in a large number of customers. But once that money goes, those customers might go because they may have just purchased because they lacked because you're being bombarded with this ad over and over again, and they didn't see other options. This is a phenomenon in psychology called ego depletion. When you're constantly bombarded with one option and you don't see better options, you will often just take that option because you're tired of thinking. But this is not sustainable because you can't just keep throwing money indefinitely in an inefficient manner.
Like
So
we
when I
can
say
see in
sustainable,
butter.
I'm sorry, can you see it?
Like we can see in butter. Like there's one butter which constantly keeps in mind and which constantly being seen on videos, which constantly being seen on ads, and we
Oh, right,
generally
right.
tends
Yes.
to buy that.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. Yeah. Understood. Yeah. Yes.
No,
So these
yes.
are the main challenges that are being faced.
So I think we can move to the next section of our video, and which would say like, how does a small business highlights their USP and distinguish themselves from competitors? I think we
Okay.
have already spoken about that, but we can give a very brief on this.
Absolutely. Yes. One element of highlighting USP is to show people specific things. When you're just running, when you just have an ad, when you just have a website live, you're relying on the SEO to show them specific things. Meaning you don't have absolute control over what anyone sees at any given second. By running search ads that target the people who are looking for your brand, then you can show them very specific offers. You can remind them why they're choosing your brand. This is very important to enhance brand loyalty. Now, another thing that we can do is to run ads that target generic terms and target specific competitors. This is very important because no business can last long if they're only targeting people who've already heard of them. And at some point, you do need to take the
Absolutely.
conflict in the market to the competitor as well.
Like if we
And
are
we,
starting our business, we do have a very limited kind of audiences which do know our brand, and we have to reach out to the people who don't know our brand,
exactly.
either through
Yes.
like various of the ways, referrals, ads, videos. The ways can be like in them.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, uh, we can run different kinds of search campaigns to do this. And to highlight this specific point, the main thing to think about is search campaigns. So we can run search campaigns that have an automated campaign type, and we can run search campaigns that are focused on a specific brand. So these are things we can do to highlight USPs for small businesses and distinguish them from competitors.
Perfect, perfect. I think we are good with this, and we can move to the next section. And like, what ad types? I would say this is a very, very important question. What ad type will work best for reaching intent-based audience? Because we are talking about intent-based audience from like very long right now
Yes,
in this
yes.
video, and people want to know like how to reach to that kind of intent-based audiences.
All right. Now, the general method for this is to show products or categories of products directly to the people who are searching for them through in the form of some sort of catalog-based ads.
Yes.
Meaning, we collect a catalog and we show the ad and product data directly from that
Hmm.
to customers themselves. This is distinct from a search ad in that we're showing them a relatively static ad. But with a catalog ad, the SEO and the SEM are optimized to show people specifically something that they're likely to use for purchases.
And I
And that
would
they like.
rather say, and I would rather say, catalog is a USP of Ad Yogi,
Oh,
which
very much.
none of the brand in India is maintaining their own catalogs, and the hard works of the brands are like literally zero, and Ad Yogi is doing
Yes.
best in catalog management.
Yes, we have an absolutely exquisite platform API that we can use to pull the data and to optimize it according to Google's policies. This is important. It's easy to just pull data or to use a general app that sets up a catalog. What's difficult is to make sure that each element of this is in alignment with Google's policies and to make sure that they can be changed basically on command with minimal effort. This is a very important thing because policies change by the minute. Yes. And the kind of campaign that we can set up for this is called Performance Max. It's a campaign that integrates a different kinds of ads and ad formats,
Performance.
but which has a huge focus on catalog. And this is a huge aspect of Ad Yogi because Performance Max leverages every single Google campaign type that we've worked extremely diligently to optimize and focus on.
Yes. And what do you mean by performance max campaign? Is it Ad Yogi terminology, or is it a very basic and generic terminology, performance max?
Okay, it's like saying search campaign. It's a terminology that Google themselves have set up.
Okay.
The reason it's called Performance Max, Google has essentially set this up to be the campaign type that integrates everything that has been set up so far. It integrates the best of search, discovery, YouTube, and catalog linked ads.
Okay.
Now, the purpose of running this is a great ad for small businesses who have a huge number of creatives. but are looking to bring in performance before they start scaling, and who want to, in a very fine way, target intent-based audiences.
I think we are good to go with this, and we can move to the last section. I would say last but not the least, like how will Google aid in retargeting efforts? I think
All right.
it is also a very important question for today's topic.
Yes.
How is Google is going to aid in retargeting or retargeting the audience, or the kind of efforts we are giving in retargeting?
All right. Now, the way Google will aid in retargeting is to leverage aspects of Google that are not that are not that are relatively active, not based on active intent. Now, I talked about prior intent and active intent, and I'm talking about this in the context of audiences, but also in terms of platforms. For example, say you get if you're looking for something on search, that's the highest element of active prior intent. However, the least of active prior intent is if you get some sort of image notification on Gmail. Now, the retargeting efforts on Google is to show the ads that are retargeting ads proportionate to how much they're oriented towards intent, meaning you're most likely to get retargeting ads on Gmail and on YouTube home feed and through the Google display network. People are generally not searching to buy things on websites that are not oriented towards sales. I mean, you're not going to go on Ghana.com and try to purchase electronics related to the music, right? You're more likely to do this through. So this is one thing that Google does in terms of aiding and retargeting efforts. And the kind of campaigns that we can use for this are discovery and YouTube campaigns, which massively leverage image and massively leverage YouTube simultaneously.
And discovery campaigns, you mean to say which comes under the discovery tab and YouTube marketing? We can say what kind of ads we are running on YouTube. We can show it in the discover tab, and we can show it as a skippable ad, non-skippable ad, in-stream ads. Different
In terms of immediate understanding, yes, and that is exactly how discovery and YouTube were conceptualized and set up by Google in the first place. However, discovery is outside of Google Discover. It can also appear on the Google Display Network and the YouTube feed. And YouTube can appear in aspects that have nothing to do with the video themselves, meaning they can appear on the display network as well. And when I say display network, I'm talking about websites that are running Google-based ads on. Basically, any news website that you see will be running Google ads, which means they're on Google Display Network. You're going to see discovery and YouTube ads there as
well. Perfect. Ayush, we do have a question from Krishna. I think we can stop sharing the screen and we can stop slideshow. And yes, we have a question from Krishna Reddy Chapala, who was asking, for D2C brands, which platform is good to go with? A, Google, Amazon Marketplace, or Facebook? Google, Amazon or Facebook, which marketplace is like best, or which platform is best for D2C brands? If this, we can split in three parts: for starting brands, from mid-sized brands, and for enterprise brands, for well-established brands.
All right. For well-established brands, I would recommend that you market on all three platforms for this reason. On Amazon, it's a marketplace, so you are actively competing with very high purchase intent. On Facebook, you're targeting the least purchase intent. And on Google, you're targeting in terms of significant purchase intent, not as high as Amazon, though, in terms of purchases. Now, the way this works is this is kind of a horseshoe. And by that, I mean this. When you are at the top in terms of a business, you don't have a huge element of further scaling to do in terms of the incremental, which means you have less to gain and a lot to lose by taking more risk than you need to take. The same thing applies to very small businesses. You have a lot to lose and very little to gain by taking unnecessary risks. With mid-sized brands, you have the competitors that are much smaller than you to keep down. You want to keep them down. And the competitors that are much larger than you, you want to take the conflict to them. And in the case of the smallest competitors, I would recommend a low-budget Google campaigns and relatively high-budget Facebook campaigns. In terms of medium-sized brand, and I would recommend that very small brands not compete on Amazon as much. Again, I'm not an Amazon expert, so you will want to discuss this with our in-house Amazon experts. We have many. But this is my understanding of how Amazon works, which is a very high competition area. If you're a mid-sized brand, one thing you want to do is some experimentation with Amazon. I use that word carefully, experimentation. But you want to set up a relatively even split between Google and Facebook. Not only are you trying to hold on to the position that you have, you're trying to expand, which means you want to focus on Google and Facebook. Google first as a prospecting solution and Facebook for retargeting. And I started with the large brands point. So there's that. Krishna, I hope that answers your question adequately.
I would say that perfectly answers Krishna's question, and we are on a verge of ending the session. And I would say, like, how time flies, I didn't imagine. Yes. And guys, if you have any type of queries, you can post it in the comment section. And if you do like the video, so please press the like button, subscribe to our Ad Yogi channel, press that bell icon to get notified whenever our video comes in. And we do get our live on every Fridays at around 6 p.m. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And if you have any queries, you can ask in the comment section. And we have a pinned link in the comment section from which you can book a call with our growth experts and book a call with Ad Yogi to scale up your business to literally 100 CR actually. And Ad Yogi has literally scaled many businesses. Like we have a person, Ayush. Ayush has also scaled businesses to very good extent, and Ad Yogi will help you to scale your business to very good extent. So till that time, thank you so much, guys. I hope you liked the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.